All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. With me today, as always, I've got
I'm here.
the expert. So today we are going to be diving into a fascinating topic.
Yes.
We're going to be looking at the Arabian Oryx.
Okay.
And this is a really, really cool animal.
It is.
I think most people who listen to the show are at least a little bit familiar with it.
Yeah,
But we're going to be going way beyond just the basics here.
I like it.
We're going to be taking a deep dive. We've got some excerpts here from a really cool article.
Okay.
And we're going to be trying to understand not just, the physical characteristics and the habitat and stuff like that, but also we're going to be looking at this amazing journey that it's had from being, almost extinct to being reintroduced into the wild.
Yeah.
And also its significance in Arabian culture. So,
It's good.
I guess one of the most striking things about the Arabian Oryx is just its appearance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful creature with this brilliant white coat and then these really contrasting dark markings on its face and legs.
And the horns.
And of course,
Yeah.
the horns.
Those are incredible.
They can grow up to 75 centimeters long.
Yeah, up to 75 centimeters.
It's huge.
2.5 feet.
And they're straight too.
Yeah. They're not curved or anything.
Yeah.
They're just
Like a sword almost.
straight spears.
Yeah.
It's no wonder that, that some people think that these animals might have actually inspired the legends of unicorns.
You can see the connection there with those horns.
Yeah, I mean, if you just saw that silhouette out in the desert, you might think, hey, is that a horse with a horn on its head?
Exactly.
What's really fascinating to me is how well these animals are adapted to living in the desert. I mean, you think about the desert, it's like the ultimate test of survival.
Right.
Right.
You gotta be tough.
It's hot, it's dry, there's not a lot of food.
And water's scarce.
Yeah, water is the most precious thing.
Exactly.
And these animals can actually go weeks without drinking.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's insane.
They get most of the moisture they need from the plants they eat.
Right. They can even sense rainfall from miles away.
Yeah, like little rain detectors.
It's like they have this built-in radar or something.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It's crazy. And
Yeah.
and then not only that, but their hooves are perfectly adapted for walking on sand.
Yeah.
They're nice and wide. So they don't sink in.
They don't sink.
It's like they're wearing snowshoes, but for the desert.
Exactly. It's like natural snowshoes.
It's just amazing how evolution has equipped them with all these tools to survive in such a harsh environment.
Yeah. It's really remarkable.
But, despite all of that, they were almost wiped out completely.
I know. It's a sad story.
Yeah. In the mid-20th century, there was a lot of unregulated hunting. And
People didn't understand the impact they were having.
and by the early 1970s, they were actually declared extinct in the wild.
It's hard to believe that an animal so well adapted could be pushed to that point.
I know. It's really sad.
But
But thankfully, there were some people who were working really hard to save them.
yeah, there were some dedicated conservationists.
Yeah. And they started these captive breeding programs in zoos and reserves around the world. And
And that was really the key.
yeah, that was the turning point.
Yeah, bringing them back.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it wasn't just about breeding them in captivity. It was also about restoring their habitat
Right.
and working with local communities
Yeah.
to address the root causes of the decline.
Yeah, you can't just breed them and then release them into an environment that's not suitable.
Right.
So you have
Exactly.
to make sure that the habitat's there, the
Yeah.
food's there, the water's there, and that people are on board with protecting them.
Right. Because if you don't have the support of the people who live in those areas,
Yeah.
then it's not going to be successful.
Exactly.
So that was a really important part of it.
It was a holistic approach.
Yeah. And so in the 1980s, they started reintroducing the oryx back into the wild in places like Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan.
And you know what?
Yeah.
It was a huge success.
Yeah. The article says that they were actually the first animal
Yeah.
to be downgraded from extinct in the wild to vulnerable on the IUCN Red List.
On the red list, yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
The IUCN red list is kind of like the gold standard.
Right. For tracking the conservation status
Yeah.
of species.
Exactly. It tells us how well different species are doing.
Yeah. And so to go from
Yeah.
extinct in the wild to vulnerable is a massive achievement.
That's a huge victory for conservation.
Yeah. It's really inspiring.
It shows what's possible when people work together
Yeah.
and dedicate resources to saving a species.
And today, there are over 200 Arabian Oryx. roaming free in the wild.
Yeah, over 200.
Which is amazing. And there are thousands more in managed breeding programs.
Yeah, those breeding programs are still important.
Right.
To ensure the genetic diversity of the species.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just in case something happens to the wild populations.
Right. So we've talked about the physical adaptations, the near extinction,
Yeah.
the reintroduction.
Yeah.
There's another really important aspect to the Arabian Oryx's story, and that's its cultural significance.
Yeah.
I mean, this animal is more than just an animal. It's a symbol in Arabian culture.
It's deeply embedded in the history and culture of the region.
Yeah. Represents things like grace, strength, endurance.
Qualities that are highly valued in that harsh desert environment.
Right. And you see its image everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's on coins, stamps, emblems.
Yeah. It's even the national symbol of several Gulf countries.
Exactly. It's a source of pride for the people.
So it's clear that this animal holds a really special place in the hearts of the people who live in that region.
Absolutely.
But, even with all these successes, there are still some ongoing challenges
Right.
that the Arabian Oryx faces.
Conservation is an ongoing effort.
Yeah. What are some of the
Grace.
biggest threats right now?
Well, habitat loss is a big one.
Development and overgrazing are shrinking their already limited territory.
So basically, they're losing their homes.
Yeah, they're being squeezed into smaller and smaller areas
Yeah.
where resources are scarce.
And then,
What?
on top of that,
Yeah.
you got climate change,
Right.
which is making the droughts
Yeah.
even worse.
So it's harder for them to find water, harder for them to find food.
Exactly.
And
So-
then, even though there are stricter regulations now, illegal hunting is still a problem.
sadly.
Yeah, it's still a threat.
So it sounds like.
Yeah,
Even though we've made a lot of progress, there's still a lot of work to do,
absolutely. We
Yeah.
can't let our guard down.
right? We can't.
We have to remain vigilant.
Yeah. Celebrate the victories and then just like walk away.
Exactly.
Right.
Conservation is a long game.
Yeah. And it requires a
Continuous effort
continuous effort.
in adaptation.
You know, what I find really interesting about this whole story is that it's kind of like a microcosm of what we're facing on a larger scale with the planet.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
We're dealing with limited resources,
Yeah.
a changing climate,
Yeah.
and the impact of human activities.
Exactly. It's like,
It's all interconnected.
yeah, it's all the same issues.
And the Oryx's story shows us
Yeah,
that it's possible to turn things around.
right. But it takes a lot of work.
A lot of dedication,
Yeah.
a lot of cooperation.
And a lot of understanding
Yeah.
of the interconnectedness of everything.
Exactly.
So I guess the question that we should leave our listeners with is, what can we learn from the Arabian Oryx's journey? And how can we apply those lessons to protect other endangered species and to safeguard the ecosystems that we all depend on?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is. It is.
It's something for all of us to think about.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the Arabian Oryx.
It's been a pleasure.
It has been. It has been.
Always a fascinating topic.
Yeah, keep exploring, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.